What if you could build a business that gives you the life of freedom you deserve? What if you could find the secrets to marketing, leadership, customer service, and other aspects of business that help you exceed your goals? What if you could walk away from your business for 30 days and it never misses a beat? That's what this podcast is for, to help business leaders like you find freedom from the day-to-day grind and start spending your time doing the things you love. I'm Levi McClendon, and my co-host is Josh Taylor, and this is the Cheers to Freedom podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Cheers to Freedom podcast. I am your host, Josh Taylor. I'm with my host, Levi McClendon. Levi, how are you?
Dude, doing really, really well. We've kind of recovered after the Freedom Summit, which was awesome. And then I was able to take off on a small vacation just to kind of, relax and recuperate. And we're back and going at it. So, and obviously just went through a really great Thanksgiving. The weather here was beautiful, as you know now, Josh, being down here.
I do, but I'm wearing a hoodie now, which means
it's
I didn't realize. Yeah, they told me when I moved to Florida that I would always be wearing T-shirts and flip-flops, but now I'm wearing.
They lied.
Yeah,
you got to go to South Florida.
But yeah,
you got to go further south.
I know. Yeah, that's really what it is, or just be like Jeremy and go to Hawaii. And they work that
exactly.
way. Well, hey, I'm really excited about our discussion today because, you know, culture is obviously a big deal for us. And the way that we build our business, it's been something that I've always been interested in, and just how people are wired and the people that you work with, how, you know, the more you know, the better. So we have a guest today, and I want to let you introduce our guest today because you guys obviously have a lot of history.
Yeah, absolutely. I am super stoked to have Spencer Brannon from Culture Index on the call with us today. And Spence is, gosh, we go back a long way. There's that one friend I've had in my life, pretty much my entire life, that we have absolutely been best friends and have gone through the most amazing experiences together. And so this is super exciting. I've always been like, how do I get Spence on this podcast? What do we do? And he has been a big part actually in our culture, which is pretty cool. We'll get into that in a minute, but yeah, we've been best friends for a very long time. The reason I even do text message marketing, and that's probably for a whole nother story, is because of this guy, because he actually got me into this space about 15 years ago. So anyway, Spencer Brannon, welcome to Cheers to Freedom podcast, buddy.
All right. Well, thanks, Levi and Josh. Excited to be here.
Well, we're talking about obviously culture, building a, you know, in the context of what we are, it's really building a business of people that work well together and they're all moving in the same direction. Obviously, people are wired differently. Before we jump into things, and one of the exciting things we're going to do in this podcast is you're going to talk a little bit about Levi and I's results because we went through this process with you. But tell us a little bit about Culture Index. I'm really into a lot of the different personality profiles. You know, we're familiar with DISC and Enneagram and all these different things. Tell us more about Culture Index and what separates it from some of these other personality profile things that are out there.
My background, and Levi, you know, alluded to a little bit, is business. And we started businesses and we were partners in some businesses. And whatever the industry is, the bottom line is we're just in a people business, all of us, right? Car wash or text messaging or dental, it's people, really. The product is kind of what we deliver, but we're really working with people. And if our biggest asset in the business, and my experience is our biggest asset and the most valuable thing we have is our human capital. It's the people that we work with. It's the people that we invest in and train and that we empower to, you know, be our voice to our clients. And so we are all in a people business, and Culture Index helps measure and quantify kind of who those people are. For me, like in the beginning, I first was made aware of Culture Index prior to being what's now called a licensee. What I do is I license the product, but it was because I was exposed to it prior to doing what I do now in another business. And I was actually recruited to run a company through Culture Index. Prior to that, I had experience with personality testing. I absolutely saw the value in them. We used them in Boom Text, a company that Levi and I had before. We actually used some personality testing. We had One of our employees was really into the Enneagram, brought that in. We had disc profiles. I think we had, wasn't strength finders, but it was one similar to that. And I loved them. The value was there. Clearly we all sort of were wired, or we are wired in a way. But what I didn't find in a lot of the other kind of personality testing was the actionable accuracy, I guess. I mean, they all sort of like pointed us in the right direction, but none of the information that came back felt like it was specific or actionable. I mean, it wasn't enough that I could make some hiring decisions. And then this thing came along that somebody gave me the survey, this culture index survey, and the person came back and read the results to me, and it literally felt like they were reading my mail. It was very spooky and a little creepy because they were saying stuff that I didn't really ever tell anybody. And come to find out that this culture index survey has a very high reliability, very high degree or percentage of accuracy and retest reliability. And part of that is because, and I know I'm kind of going to a long explanation, but it's, if companies aren't using something, they should use something, right? We're wired in a way. And if our employees are the most valuable thing we have, we should put resources to figure out who we have. Culture Index, the difference was it was a non-forced question survey. It wasn't a test. And that was the one thing about these other things that I'd taken. They had a question that would say, which one most, right, reflects you? And if they didn't reflect me, then I was choosing something that really doesn't, reflect at all, but I had to pick something because they had to have a set of data to compare against. And this survey is a non-forced question survey. It's done based off of just a set of words. There's no right or wrong answers. There's no fixed set of questions. It's a list of words, 174 words that we free choice association. And that in itself is what delivers this high level of accuracy in the 7 areas we measure. We measure 7 core traits as they relate to business. And they're the 7 things that we want to know when we're finding somebody for a position and we're trying to figure out how do we fill the right role, get the right person in the right seat on the bus. And that's what we measure. And this was like life-changing for me to be able to see like, wow, this is actionable. I could actually like put somebody in a seat on the bus before trying 3 other seats and have a, stack the deck in my favor. It was pretty cool.
Just to paint the picture a little bit, because as OptSpot has been growing, right? If you look at the last couple of years, we've gone from literally 3 employees to 21 employees, and we've grown a bunch. And being that, of course, I've known Spencer, it's not just knowing him, but he's stinking really, really good at what he does to help us say, hey, we're hiring for this position. Does this person meet this position? A lot of times I literally will have everyone that comes on board with OptSpot has to take the culture index. And so we send it to them. And then part of Spencer's job, of course, is to analyze the results. And then he'll be like, what are you hiring him for? And I'm like, no, what would they be good for? Because I don't want to have any kind of I don't want him to have any, preconceived ideas of, okay, well, I want to put him into this particular seat. I'm like, where would this people fit really well within the OptSpot, culture? And he knows now a lot of the seats, right? The different positions and whatnot that we have. And so every single person that we're bringing on board right now, we have them take the culture index. I have Spencer analyze them, and he says, I think that'd be good here. And we're like, either sweet or dang, we're going to have to reposition them to another position, because over the last 2 years, it has been spot on. Not only is it spot on for those positions, but as we've, people end up changing too, right? So they get in a position for a certain amount of time, and every 6 to 9 months, we're like, hey, take this again, because we want people that are in the right seats that love what they do. And so that is really important. It's one thing to be in a seat and be doing your job, but not being really happy about doing your job. I think this is, like Spencer said, we are in a people business. I don't care what you're doing, but it's very important for me, for our culture, for OptSpot, to make sure that people are in the seats doing the things that they love to do. That is extremely important, because I think when you have people in the right seats, they become way more effective, way more efficient. They're happy. They love to get up every morning, do what they love to do. And so this, to me, is probably our number one priority, is making sure people are in the right seats. And so that's why, again, I don't feel like I just wanted to paint that picture there. We literally have been using Spencer the last couple of years. And now as at the Freedom Summit, we rolled out the Who Not How book. And that's a book I just want to give credit to, of course, Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan, who are the authors of this book. And when we started reading Who Not How as a team, and that is, getting the right who's and not always knowing how to do something, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we need as a company. But in order for us to fulfill that, in order for us to really embrace this and implement this throughout the company, we need culture index. We need to make sure we're putting people in those right seats. So again, sorry to go back, but I just want those listeners to know that this isn't just Spencer, my buddy, coming on our show going, hey, what is culture index? Like, this is something any business, any company that is trying to grow a business, a successful business, having passionate people doing the things they love, this particular tool has made a huge impact on us. And I know, Spence, you can share other stories. I think there are some stories that you are going to share with us where it literally has changed people's lives. And that's what I want to make sure the listeners know.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Levi. Thank you. Because I sort of jump in and start talking about the survey and the specifics about why it's so great and accuracy and, the cybernetics behind it and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is like, what's the point, right? If we just have some bells and whistles, that's neat. And if I can read tea leaves and tell you who you are, that's neat. But if we can't figure out how to apply that, like, what's the point of it? We have to, it's the applied. People ask me, what field are you in? And to try to sound smart, I say applied behavioral analytics. And really it just is like, it's the application. It's looking at like who people are, how they're wired, and figure out where they would fit within your organization. And then having the background and the knowledge to say strategically, let's look at the organization to figure out who you need. Let's reverse engineer what you need. When you introduced the book, like you said that to me, I don't know, a few months ago, the Who Not How. And I was actually on a plane going to do a speaking thing in Mexico, and I was listening to it, and I changed my, this is going to sound familiar to you for pitches from Sonic or whatever, but I changed the pitch or my presentation on the plane on the way down there based off of that book, because it's exactly that's it. It's who, not how, but how do you figure out who? And let me just, I don't want to digress too much because I know, we'll get short on time here, but this is why I think this is why it all came together for me, and why I was like, Culture Index made such a big difference for me. There's the dog.
That's all right.
Yeah, you may have to cut here and then start over. Should I let her out or let her in? Letting you out. Here you go. Okay. So, sorry, I didn't want that dog to mess us up too much. So here's the thing that made an impact for me, or that I started to realize. Go on. That when I had a chance to coach some, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, so you may have to cut this and come back into it. So I had a chance to coach some basketball teams, and if you've ever coached or played sports, if you've played basketball, you understand that there's like positions that certain body types and styles will fit. Like if you walk into a gym and you're 6'10", 6'11", chances are you're going to play somewhere under the basket. You're sort of like closer to the basket than somebody who's 5'10", and the chances are that person's going to be near the floor and they're going to play point guard. And it's super easy visually when somebody walks in a gym and you're a coach to say, like, maybe you're going to fit here. Now, you might be wrong, but at least you're kind of stacking the deck in your favor visually, because basically that's kind of how they're wired. If I take somebody in business and they walk in and apply for the job that I have listed, what do you think they're going to interview as? I don't know if they're 5'10" or 6'10", but if the interview is for a post, somebody who's going to play under the basket, if they're 5'10", it doesn't matter. They're going to come in and say they're a post.
Right.
And I have no idea, because visually, I don't know how they're hardwired. I don't know who they are. I'm just going to select them because they applied. I like them. But should I put them as a point guard out on the floor? Should I put them? And I could give them books all day long on being taller. And I could tell them to think more tall. Think more tall. They can't. They're not wired that way. They're not built tall. You can't change it. We are sort of wired with certain defaults. We all have them. We have 7 traits that we default to. And this is why I was like, oh my gosh, we do this all the time when we're building great sports teams. I learned that from a Hall of Fame coach. We don't have that same option in business until we have a way to measure who these people are when they walk in the gym or the our boardroom or the interview spot. Now we have some quantifiable data, and we know, hey, you're actually wired. I know you applied for this, but you're wired as this. And what about trying that? Because you've seen the poster. Find what you love to do, and you'll never work the day in the rest of your life, or something like that, right? So I would snowboard as a professional, or I'd golf. I'd be a professional golfer. It'd be awesome. But that's not really what I think it's saying. I think if you can work within how you're hardwired, right? If I can build things, if I can see like the next thing and move and grow, oh man, I don't feel like I'm working. But when you tell me, hey, come off that and like get down into the details and start to do kind of rote day to day, oh my gosh, it's like, nails on a chalkboard for me. Other people love that. It's just how we're wired.
Yeah. So when we started implementing this, and I don't remember how long ago it was at least a year ago, we started implementing this. So everybody that came on, everybody that was already on the team did this. And then anybody that we hire goes through this. There's a couple of things that I realized. One of the things that I really like about it is it kind of gives you two different types of results. And I probably won't explain this correctly, but the way that I see it is you've got kind of the way that you're hardwired personally, and then the kind of the way you have to change who you are in order to do your job because of either the job that you're doing or the way you're being managed or whatever it is. And that could either help you function to your best ability, or it can stress you out to where you do become least productive. And so it gives not only great results for the person taking the test, but it also gives great results to the person that's managing the person as well. And the other thing that I noticed, even within our own company, is one of the core values that we have is no drama. And that really is something that we haven't seen, especially since we've implemented this, is there's not a lot of drama. And I think it's because, one, we hire the right people, put them in the right seats, and we know how to manage them the right way, because they might be in the right seat, but they're being managed the wrong way, and it's stressing them out and often creating that drama that could be avoided if we just knew a little bit more than what we often know when we hire people. So, and we're going to see some of this, because what I'd love for you to do is, over on a high level, we can't dive deep into the results that Levi and I have from our test. But as it relates to us, or a lot of people that are listening know Jeremy as well. And we didn't ask Jeremy if we could do this, so we won't throw his results up there. But the three of us are different in a lot of different ways. And the three of us are alike in a lot of different ways. And one of the things that we discovered in this is Levi and I tested very similar in some of these things, but then on opposite ends on a couple of them as well. So I want to, if you can, just kind of go through one. Levi, obviously it says philosopher. What are the 7 different names of people, what they could be?
That's a good question. So we actually have, so we measure 7 personality traits, and they're as they relate to business. We don't get into dating or clinical types of things, but we measure those personality traits as they're going to relate to work. There's actually 19 what we call typified profiles, and we just label them so that we have a jumping off point when we start discussing who somebody is in general. When I say a philosopher, I have a general idea who that is, and it basically tells me kind of where those 7 traits are going to land in general. But then we get very specific in the nuances of each one of those traits, and we measure them. I won't get into the details too much, but we measure them pretty specifically on a 6 Sigma sliding bell curve. We get down into percentage of trait in the total population of survey takers, and it does make a difference. And I'll speak. One of the fun things, let me just back. One of the fun things that's been, especially for me with OptSpot, is to watch over the last few years the company evolve and grow, to see kind of who the initial staff or who the initial team was, where they were on the bus, and then watch kind of those shift, and knowing like, okay, maybe that person needs to be in a different spot, and now is not the time, but we're going to grow to the point where we can shift and kind of backfill as necessary, and watch some of these transitions take place. It's been really fun for me, but it's also really I think it's been good. Like every time I've been at like a conference, I'll come to one of the car wash shows and sit with the staff for a bit. and have these moments where I think over dinner, Josh, one of these times happened with you, Levi, and I, when we went over your profiles. And it was sort of an aha moment. And I loved it. I loved it for Trayton as well. Like we had one with Trayton and Jeremy, where it was like these light bulb moments. And I don't think it's a light bulb moment for the person understanding. Like, I don't think it was Levi understanding you as much as Levi understanding himself some more. And understanding, oh my gosh, it's a lot of like understanding how we view the world. Like we don't view the world the way it is. None of us view the world the way it is. We all view the world the way we are.
Right.
And to understand how we are so that we can see this is the reason we think this or view this situation this way is because we're viewing it through our lens. And I use the example or the analogy or idea that if the three of us were sitting in a room and there was two people blindfolded and each of them were describing an object that they were feeling, and we knew that they were describing the same object, but they were out loud describing. And one of them says, I feel this sort of like rope, fibrous, leathery, has some fiber, kind of hard rope. It feels like almost like a tug of war rope. The other person says, oh gosh, no, it's squishy and gooey and kind of feels like warm and gooey. We would on the outside be giggling because we would understand they were both describing different ends of the same elephant, different ends of the same object. The elephant, the tail being fibrous and the other in the trunk, his hands in the trunk and it's squishy. And they would argue that they were both correct and they were both correct. And we would see from the outside, because we see the elephant in the room, right? We see all sides. We know that there's every other aspect that we are not even looking at when we view a problem, yet we will fight just as adamantly for our point of view because that's the way we view it. And so when we sat down and I think one of the things I mentioned about your profile, Josh, was that, you were in the top, I think 2% of the population. It might be, I'm looking at it in a little bit, but it might be in the top, 2 to 14% of the population who are focused. You are a focused individual, and that when you are on task and you are dialed in and you are working, that is when you are productive. When you break that productivity, when you break that focus and that work ethic, I guess the dialed in portion, restarting that, getting back into that flow is difficult. Yeah. When you're in that flow, kind of that interruption, and then to talk through Levi. Now you guys both have the same profile. You guys are both what we consider philosophers, which means you're a big visionary person. You catch vision. You look to the future. You are a forward moving visionary type of person. So you both have to be or want to be in control of sort of your own destiny, control things, but not micromanage, but you have a vision of the way things. So you both are wired that way. You're both more serious minded. Doesn't mean you're not playful and fun, but you're serious about doing your job. You don't show up just for the party. You're not showing up for cake in the break room. Doesn't mean you don't love the culture, but you're about getting things done. And so you guys line up really well with that. And the difference is when I start looking at one of the traits we measure is your pace, right? How fast do you multitask? Are you a quick mover? Or are you more focused and more, process driven? And Levi, you're just, your pace is a little bit more, change, check, move fast. And Josh is a little bit more, process focused. And what was happening, I think, was Levi, you love to solve problems. I've known this for years. Levi's favorite phrase when I see him, I'll go, months without seeing him. I'll see him in person. His favorite thing is, dude, nobody's doing this. Nobody's doing this. He loves to be in the future, thinking about the next big thing, solving a problem. Now, does that mean he's always going to take that to market? Not necessarily, because he just likes to solve the problem. Once he knows it's done, man, that would work. I could do that. That would work. Try that. Yeah, see, it works. Okay, next thing. Like he wants 80% finished and move on. And so he wants to check in. Josh, here's a great idea. Hey, I've got that done. That's pulling Josh off his focus. By about the third time Levi does a pop-in, I was notorious for this around our companies. It's like I was Mr. Pop-in. I thought everybody wanted to meet me and talk to me. And so hey, you did, pop in to everybody. And I had no idea that it doesn't mean they didn't like me. It's just they didn't need to hear from me as often as I wanted them to. And so I was breaking their focus constantly. And I think this was happening somewhat with Josh. And so we talked about that. We talked about working remotely. And I just randomly said, Josh, you're the kind of person who, you're resourceful. You don't need the actual like interaction at the office, and you're better off being, alone and focused, and you need to be, connected to the vision so that you don't run off on your own, but you don't need to have like an office environment. And I think that was light bulb moment. So this is how we apply. I mean, a lot of what I've been doing, even with Jeremy, has been just talking through like, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying this, just how do we manage based off of our personality style? Where's our struggle going to be when we manage our people and we're building our teams? And then how do we relate to those that are different from us? Because if we have 19 profiles, and we've sort of said everybody falls into these kind of 19 categories, statistically, that's, right around a 5-6% chance that somebody else that we meet is going to see the world the same way we do, right? So 19 divided by 100, you're around a 6% chance that we're not going to be the same, wired the same. And so how do we deal with our employees, our most valuable assets? How do we manage them well? How do we make them empowered to work in their strengths? Yeah. Well, I know I say too much. I get excited about this stuff, obviously.
No, it's good. And I think what the benefit of this is, what we've learned, Spence, and is we communicate now our strengths and weaknesses, right? Like Josh is able to say, without just sitting there thinking, oh, why is he calling me? I'm in a flow and now I got to get out. And it's frustrating. We now communicate that and say, hey, Josh needs a set time that we're going to have a meeting to go over what Levi's ideas are, right? Like, what are we doing? Same thing with Jeremy. Jeremy is more of, hey, he'll get on the phone and he's very relational. So he cares genuinely more about how you're doing than I genuinely care about how you're doing. And I'm working on that, because the problem, and I don't want to say a problem, the way that I'm wired is, let's get on the phone, let's get to business, give me the cliff notes, rock and roll, move on. Okay. Because my mind's next. What's next? Whereas Jeremy's is more, and even Trayton, I always use those two because they're very relational. They'll get on the phone and he cares. He cares about life, and I love it. And again, I'm trying to learn to care more, but we also learn to communicate with each other so that we're effective in what we're doing during like business time, right? So even with Josh and Jeremy, we, like, hey, Josh needs his structured time. Let him be in his flow. We're not going to bother him. We're not going to, and he lets us know, hey, Josh, let us know what's the best way to communicate with you. What's the best way? When are the best times that we can, set something up to talk? Because he is super, when he's productive too, man, he'll knock stuff like, I'm like, holy crap. Like, he's knocking stuff out that it would take me a week to do, and he's done in a day, because he's extremely like in the flow, dialed in, and nobody's bugging him. And those are the things that we've tried to implement throughout our company, from our C-suite, down to our latest hire of, how do people work the best in their role? And let's make sure that we're focused, in that. And so the thing that I want to ask Spence, a lot of our this podcast, it is called Cheers to Freedom. Freedom, it looks different to everybody, right? And so I really want to direct, in this particular episode, I would say this is part of running a business, right? Is this culture and understanding right people in the right seats, right? So there's freedom in hiring the right people. There's freedom in people operating in their unique ability. Again, the having freedom in who you're hiring and the roles that they're going in is going to help you move, obviously, the bus in the right direction and go faster. That's what this is about. And so, Spence, a lot of our listeners are car wash owners. And so I'd like to just quickly, I know we need to wrap this up here pretty soon, but ultimately in the car wash space, how can this benefit the car wash owner or the manager that has to hire people in these positions? Because when you think about it, you have multiple positions in the car wash, right? From operations to HR to the greeters that are onboarding and loading cars, the preppers, to even a lot of times in express washes, the vacuum areas, right? There's different personalities probably needed. There's people that enjoy the different positions. And what I see now is a lot of times these owners will actually rotate their employees. And I'm not always it's like, is that a good idea if somebody's not wired to go be in the vacuum area and engage with people? If that's kind of your sales, maybe your upsell area, and you're trying to engage and sell them on a membership, should you have your, prep guy who's good with the brush and maybe just getting somebody through? Should they be rotating those people just to keep them engaged? And maybe how can a customer, a car wash owner, actually utilize Culture Index?
Yeah, good question. In car wash space, I mean, really any industry, and I've heard from some people in the car wash space that maybe, on the kind of new first hire, lower, I don't want to say lower, but entry level position, does it make sense? Does it make any difference whether they're wired this way or that way? And I mean, I contend absolutely. Those people who come into the space are all wired some way, right? And I just heard you say, Levi, for 28 years now, or I guess probably 38 years, to be honest, how you said, you're working on trying to be more caring about how people. I've seen that, but that's like saying, like, try to be taller, right? Read this book and do you can. You're
never going to care about people.
You just don't like people. You're just not a nice person.
Hold on. I gotta clarify.
No, this is not.
I gotta clarify.
I want to clarify.
I love
you
people.
Love people.
I love people.
You do.
I love to see people win and be successful. Yes.
That's right. It. That's the difference. And this, I just had a conversation last night with this client church in Columbia, South Carolina. Great guy, Alan. I'm sure he would not mind me sharing this. We were talking for an hour, and they've been through some really tough sort of transitional times, some turbulation here in the last 6 months or so, and we were talking through that, and he was talking about like, well, and I just need to figure out how we got this and how we're going to get this done, and like we weathered the storm, and they feel like maybe I'm pushing them too much, and I'm listening to them talk through how we do this, how this. And I said, Alan, can I interject just for a second? Let me just remind you of your superpower, remind you of who you are. And you are a visionary, but vision and dream can be very different. And you are an executor visionary. You see what needs to be done in order to accomplish what you all want to accomplish. But sometimes you need to go back and dream with your people. You need to go back and tell them what it looks like when your vision is accomplished, because you are very execute this, do this. How's that going to happen? Tell me your plan for this. Very plan. Levi, you are sort of the same way. It's not because you don't love, but you see the result. What happens when people can walk away from their business? What happens when they can have that freedom? What happens when they can spend time? And so you love them. That's why you dedicated your passion, your life into this. But to be reminded, like, no, you don't need to be Jeremy. You're not wired to be Jeremy. You can't sit under the basket and think you're going to be taller. You're not. You're Levi. And the way Levi loves people is he figures out how to solve problems, and he figures out what their problems is, and he goes, here's how you'd fix it, and do this and do more of that, and I love you. And that's why you told me one time when I was 11 years old, you grabbed me, the first person ever said, looked me in the face and said, stop making excuses. And it changed who I was, right? Because you had to, like, because you loved me enough to say, all like, the time. right. But the truth is that is kind of how you're wired. Yeah. And these are the things that are important to know about the people that we hire, is like, because somebody would think, well, maybe Levi doesn't care. He's just about the numbers. But if look at Levi's personality trait. It shows right here in his dots. It shows right there that he's more serious minded at work, but he absolutely has a vision, and his vision involves people and involves like having great results for his clients and customers. No doubt. And so when we're hiring these people and we're bringing them in, they're going to eventually become our leaders and our integrators and our visionaries. Why wouldn't we want to know the path they're on, right? Why wouldn't we want to know if this person is going to, do we invest this resource or this resource? Do we move them towards a sales role? When we put people in a sales role just to kind of engage them, or move them around, or are we making them uncomfortable and making it feel like an out-of-body experience? That's one of the things that Josh alluded to earlier, and we're getting short on time here, but how do we measure that? And we have this tool that was unbelievable to be able to kind of give us a red flag of, hey, this person's disengaged, or this person could be utilized in a different area. And I can tell you one quick story, just in a real world application outside the car wash industry. But I had a client I was training. I was brand new in the as a licensee and trainer, and I had a client, an HVAC client, and the owner said, asked me a question about about somebody's profile. And I said, truthfully, if the survey or the profile comes back as that, I trust the dots. I mean, the surveys are pretty accurate, about 5% higher accuracy. I just sort of lean into it. And I wasn't even sure at that point, because I was brand new, if I believed it fully, but I said it, he believed it. A few months later, we're having a coaching call, and I asked him some questions and whatever. He says, listen, the thing I want to talk about is Jose. I got to tell you this. You told me that if the dots, we call them dots, if the survey comes back with this particular profile, I believe it. And Jose came back. He's been here at the company as an installer, HVAC installer, for 10 years. He'd been doing the same thing. He came back with this particular profile we call a trailblazer, which is a high visionary, kind of more sales, growth oriented visionary, real outgoing, real social. Not necessarily a very detailed person, not somebody I would have ever expected to be in the installation side of the business. So he had surveyed all of his employees. He saw this person was wired as a salesperson. He made him an offer to go into Comfort Advisor, which is essentially sales for that industry. I had talked to him 2 months later after this. He had been doing that job almost going on to 3 months. He said, oh my gosh, Spence, it's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. It's exactly what you said. In 2 months, he sold $250,000 in equipment with no training, has not been trained. He's just been doing this for a long time. He was one of their worst installers. Was not good at installing, but he was so competitive that he would not quit and he wouldn't fail. He just didn't do. And I looked at his profile and said, of course he's competitive. He's a self-starter. He's self-motivated. He's terrible at install because he doesn't care about the details. He cares about the next thing, the next big thing he wants to do, engage. And this guy is now changed. And the client of mine, Keegan, said, Spence, that changed his life. He's on commission now. He's going to double his salary. He'd been there 10 years. I'm going to get emotional. He's been there 10 years. He's going to double his salary. His kids are going to go to a different college. His whole life has changed. He said the only thing that matters to him now is he's a little frustrated that somebody didn't survey him and tell him he should have been doing this 10 years ago. And literally he said he's a little bit frustrated that we didn't move him before because he's been so loyal that we didn't try him in the spot. So that was early on in my sort of licensing of Culture Index and doing this. And it changed. It was a light bulb moment for me of wow, this, because I figured out why text messaging was important to me. And it has to be important to me. And this mattered to me, how people are wired and putting them in the right spot. So every day they go to work feeling like I'm investing in what we're building and I'm contributing in a meaningful way. You're not having to figure out how to pay them more, right? You don't have to incentivize that person. That person's coming with ideas of how can we be better because they're working right with how they're wired.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it matters. And it matters from the low level up to clearly at the C level. At that point you need to be pretty specific about what you can expect from somebody.
Well, I think if you have a self, if you read the books and follow Sullivan and Hardy, I think the goal is to have a self, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, the goal is to clearly have a self-managing company, right? And to have a self-managing company, you have to have people operating in their unique ability. And in order to get people in their unique ability loving what they do, you need to take the time to care, to do a survey like Culture Index and actually put people in the right seats, or you're going to constantly be just grinding, trying to get it done. And I know so many owners and entrepreneurs that they go into business for freedom, right? And they end up just spinning their wheels and banging their head against the wall. And the number one reason that they come back with are their people. They're like, people are frustrating, and people are like, oh, it's drama, it's this and that. And I'm telling you, if you actually put in the work and you do Culture Index with Spencer, somebody like this, and have a coach and really put in the time, that can absolutely 180 degree flip-flop. And all of a sudden your people are the thing you're praising because you have a self-managing company with people working in their unique ability and they're happy. And the feedback you get, and the reason I get passionate about this is because when we were just at the Freedom Summit, and you would not believe, Spencer, how many people came up to me going, we love your team. We love your people. They are amazing. You know why? Because we care about our team. We put them in the right seats and they're passionate about what they do. And we have a self-managing company. And that's what I want for everyone else. That's why I'm on this podcast. What can we do to help people win? What can we do to help you succeed and find freedom? And these are the tools. If you would embrace things like this, these are the tools that are going to help you win, help you find your freedom. So anyway, sorry, I get a little bit passionate about it, but I love this stuff. I 100% believe in it, and it will literally give your company, if you struggle in that area with people, and if your answer is people are frustrating and they're bringing you down, then I challenge you to take a look at yourself and what are you doing to put in the time and the effort to put your people in the right seats.
Yeah. I thank you, Levi. That was perfectly said. That was, and to validate you, just to validate, circling back, validate you, you've done exactly that thing with somebody like Jeremy. You care about your people through Jeremy, right? You solve that problem.
Right.
Who is your who? You don't need to be the more caring. Jeremy is your person. Anybody who knows Jeremy knows Jeremy is a heart guy. Like I've talked to him more. You know the strategy of how this works and why this works and the tool that would use, and you use this to solve your problem. But who do I talk to? Jeremy, right? You get it. You understand this, but I talk to Jeremy because he's your who to love your team in the social sort of way. And you're doing it in your way by solving that problem of your team needs to be loved. And it's because he calls me and says, I want to talk to this person. What's the best way? We get into like talking about the management style and communication style for each of his people on his team so that they can feel more heard and seen and validated. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. And I love the way you put it there.
So real quick, Spence, you said you talked to Jeremy. Tell us, and we'll wrap up after this.
What he says about us.
What does Jeremy say about us? As far as your service goes with Culture Index, this isn't, hey, take a test, we analyze it and move on. Give us a real, high level. What is Culture Index? What do I get if I hire Spencer? What does that look like?
Yeah, thank you. From a practical standpoint, it's just that you're getting Spencer, and you're getting the consulting, applied behavioral analytics. It's the application. It's the experience of putting these profiles into the right spot. It's, understanding kind of what your goals are, figuring out what stones you're moving, what's the EOS framework of like where are your milestones, what you're moving. And so it's an unlimited model. We encourage you to survey literally everybody. Take a survey. Have everybody take a survey. It consists of 2 days on-site training where we train your higher level staff of how to interpret these surveys, how to read them, how to understand, communication styles and work with them. And then it's unlimited consulting. So, Jeremy, there's no fee. He just calls me, sets up a time. He texts me. We set up, Zoom calls. We go through things. We check in. We build org charts. There's a lot of tools within the platform. We didn't even go into a platform or profiles, but lots of it's a proprietary patented tools. We help you build. We use psycho-cybernetic reverse sort of engineering. What Malcolm Gladwell called your blink instinct to attract the right candidates to apply for your jobs. And we help you write the right ads using a color coding system that you're going to be bringing in the right profiles because we've reversed engineered the profile or the position to figure out what profile you want for the position. And then it's all about alignment. And so you get all that. It's we're an unlimited model. So once we're working together, I want to be a kind of your trusted team member, consultant, advisor.
Any size of company, and this is my final question. I'll let Josh take us home here. Size of company, like 1 employee, 10 employees, 100 employees. Like, who does this work for?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. The thing is my heart is to work with business owners, entrepreneurs, and so I will consult with anybody to try to help them grow 1 to 10, employees. They're a little small for like to be an actual client under 10 employees. That doesn't mean they couldn't. I have clients who are, 4 or 5, they're growing, the right personality, and I know they're growing. And my point is I'll certainly help to be the right size client for us. You're probably 10 to 250, 300 employees. Certainly we have Fortune 500 companies, big clients have thousands of employees. My sweet spot with my understanding is, background, the different companies I've built and been CEO of or whatever is kind of in that 10 to 250 range, employee size, 10 million to $200 million dollar range is kind of my sweet spot. But certainly, Culture Index and the surveys work across the board. But that's kind of it for me, and that's what I love to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, y'all have been listening to this. Obviously, we've implemented it into OptSpot, and it's been a game changer for our business. And we've introduced this to several of our customers that have worked with Spencer in this. So a lot of our customers and a lot of our listeners invest in their business in different ways, especially in equipment and their buildings and the locations and all those things. But honestly, when you look at your customers, what they end up talking about the most are the people, whether they have a good interaction with your people or a positive interaction with your people. And so we highly recommend that you invest in your team, invest in your people. So we recommend you talk with Spencer. So Spencer, how do people engage with you? What do they need to do if they're listening to this podcast?
So we set up a keyword that you can text to get some information and end up taking a survey. Shocker. That's a lot of jokes we could make there, but they would be inside baseball.
We've been doing this a while.
Anybody but us, right? So you can text culture to 411-365, and then you'll get a bounce back, obviously, and I'll follow up with there. But also, I want to make sure, I don't know if I mentioned it, but to anybody who listens to the podcast and who reaches out and even just mentions, OptSpot or the Cheers to Freedom podcast, I'm totally will do, a free consultation.
Awesome.
What that looks like is I'll set up a free account. You survey your people. We'll look at them. We'll get at least an hour or whatever you want on the phone. We'll do a Zoom call. I'll go through each survey the way I did for you guys initially. And it's there's no obligation there. You'll walk away with value. I mean, it's not just me showing you bells and whistles. We'll get into details and be specific. And I love to do that. It's fun for me. If we're the right size client and you see some value in that then we work together. But if not, you walk away with some value, and I would love to do that for anybody who will listen to this that reaches out for sure.
Wow. Awesome.
Hey,
and don't forget, don't forget to text cheers to 411-365. If you're listening and you have not done that, please text cheers to 411-365. As well as, like Spencer said, culture to 411-365. And also, please subscribe. We obviously we want more subscribers, more followers and listeners. If you feel like there's value to this podcast, and make some comments as long as they're good. We like good comments. The bad comments, you can, we'll give you some emails and addresses for those bad comments.
Team Levi at OptSpot.com.
Team Levi at OptSpot.com.
Right. Well, Spence, thanks so much for being a part of our episode this week. I feel like it's a ton of value. Just working with you has been a ton of value for our company, and I know a lot of our listeners will get a ton of value working with you. And
hey, man, Spence, appreciate you being on here, buddy. Love you.
It was great, man. I appreciate both you guys. Love what you guys are doing. It's exciting to watch you guys grow, and love that you're using it and implementing it and using it the right way, and it's only going to get better. So hopefully we can do another one.
Right on. Well, we probably will, but until next time, cheers.